In the heart of silence, where the mind grows still and the noise of the outer world fades away, we discover a universal truth, a melody that orchestrates all of existence, even though we rarely pause to listen. It is the melody of impermanence, the teaching that everything, absolutely everything, is in a state of perpetual flux. This video is not a lecture, but an invitation. An invitation for you to take a deep breath, release the weight from your shoulders, and immerse yourself with us in a journey of understanding, acceptance, and peace. Together, let us explore the deep rivers of Buddhist wisdom, which teach us not to fight against the current of life, but to learn to navigate its waters with grace and serenity, understanding that every bend, every rapid, and every calm pool has its own sacred timing. Imagine for a moment, not a fleeting cloud, but something far grander and slower, a canyon being carved by the relentless patience of a river. For millennia, the water, with its gentle persistence, wears away the hardest rock, not through brute force, but through constancy. The monumental landscape we admire today is the result of countless moments of transformation, living proof that nothing stays as it is. The very earth beneath our feet is in a cosmic dance of change. In the same way, our inner life is a vast territory in constant reconfiguration. The values you held dear at 18 may have transformed into new understandings by the time you are 48. Friendships that seemed eternal may have run their natural course, making way for new connections, while others have deepened in ways you could never have imagined. This is not a sign of failure or loss, but the very signature of life itself. Impermanence is the engine of renewal. To understand this principle on a deep level is liberating. Suffering often arises from our attempt to build dams and barriers against the river of life. We want to freeze moments of happiness, turning them into ice sculptures in a private museum, and at the same time we try to erect walls to prevent moments of pain from reaching us. In both cases, the struggle is exhausting and ultimately futile. Buddhist wisdom invites us to a radically different perspective. What if, instead of fighting, we learn to become the river itself, to flow with the changes, to embrace each new landscape that presents itself, whether it be a flowered valley of joy or a shadowy gorge of challenge? Think of the majesty of an ancient forest. For new trees to grow and reach for the sunlight, the older trees, at the end of their cycle, must fall. Their decomposition is not an end, but a transmutation. They become the fertile soil, the essential nutrient that feeds the new generation. Death and life are intertwined in an inseparable cycle of beauty and generosity. Our own existence follows this same pattern. Every ending opens the door to a new beginning. The end of a career cycle can be the start of a true calling. The end of a relationship can be the gateway to profound self-knowledge. Impermanence is not an enemy to be feared, but our greatest teacher, showing us the preciousness of the present moment. When we internalize that everything is transient, the present moment acquires a richness and vividness that is unparalleled. If you are sharing a meal with someone you love, the awareness of impermanence brings not sadness, but a sense of sacred urgency. It whispers in your ear, "Be here, savor this instant, listen with your heart." For this exact moment will never be repeated. We stop living on autopilot, worried about what was or anxious about what will be, and we begin to fully inhabit the only time we truly possess, the now. This awareness transforms us from mere spectators into active, grateful participants in the dance of life. It is like watching an artisan weaving a complex tapestry. Every thread, every color has its place and its time. If we try to rush the process or change the order, we compromise the beauty of the final work. Life weaves its patterns with a wisdom that transcends our limited understanding. Trusting this process, even when we do not understand the design being formed, is an act of profound faith and surrender. So the next time anxiety knocks on your door, whispering fears about the future or regrets about the past, invite it in, serve it a cup of tea of presence, and remember the lesson of the river and the canyon. Remember the forest and its trees. Breathe deeply and anchor yourself in the truth that everything has its time. Change is not the problem. Our resistance to it is what creates the friction. Relax into the flow. Trust the journey. Because every instant, with its ephemeral nature, is an invaluable gift, a unique opportunity to learn, to love, and to simply be. Now that we understand that life is a river in constant motion, we are invited to look at an inevitable aspect of this journey, the moments when the waters become turbulent. In Buddhism, the acknowledgement of suffering, or dukkha, is the starting point for liberation. Dukkha is a word rich with nuance. It refers not only to the sharp pain of a loss or an illness, but also to a more subtle unsatisfactoriness, a sense of friction or unease that permeates existence when we resist its impermanent nature. It is the feeling that something is missing or something shouldn't be this way. This resistance is the root of most of our anguish. One of the most profound teachings on this is the metaphor of the second arrow. Imagine that being struck by an arrow is a painful event in life, a criticism, the end of a project, a disappointment. That is the first arrow. It is often unavoidable. Pain is part of the human experience. However, what we do after the first arrow strikes us is what truly defines our level of suffering. The second arrow is our reaction to the initial pain. It is the arrow we shoot at ourselves. The rumination, the self-pity, the anger, the blame, the creation of stories about how life is unfair. Why does this always happen to me? I didn't deserve this. This has ruined everything. This second arrow is optional, but it is the one that causes the infection and most of the prolonged suffering. Accepting the first arrow is to acknowledge the reality of the pain. Refusing to fire the second is an act of deep wisdom and self-compassion. This is where the concept of detachment, or nekkhamma, reveals its true strength and beauty. To the Western mind, the word detachment can sound cold, evoking images of indifference or a lack of love. But in the Buddhist context, detachment is the opposite of indifference. It is the purest form of love and freedom. Attachment is not the love we feel, but the fear of loss that clings to it. It is the attempt to possess, control, and make permanent that which by its nature is fluid and impermanent. Imagine you are holding a small bird in your hand. If you clench your fist tightly for fear it will fly away, you will crush it. If you open your hand completely and carelessly, it will fly off and perhaps not return. Detachment is the art of keeping your hand open, cupped, offering a safe place for the bird to rest. It can stay for as long as it wishes, and if it decides to fly, you can appreciate the beauty of its flight without feeling you have lost something that was yours. You loved it without the need for possession. We practice detachment when we love the people in our lives for who they are, not for what they provide us. We celebrate their journeys, even if those journeys take them away from us. We appreciate a moment of intense joy without the anxiety of its imminent departure. Detachment allows us to dance with life instead of trying to chain it down. This practice of letting go of our attachments extends beyond people and situations, also reaching our ideas, our identities, and especially our expected outcomes. We live in a culture that teaches us to set rigid goals and to measure our worth by the results we achieve. The problem is that the universe is under no obligation to conform to our plans. Suffering arises in this chasm between our rigid expectations and the fluid reality. Letting go of expectations does not mean ceasing to have dreams or to act with purpose. It means doing your part with all your heart, planting the seeds, watering the earth, tending to the soil, but surrendering the harvest to time and the flow of life. It's understanding that our work is the effort, not the control over the fruit. How many times has an apparent failure, like not getting a certain job, opened the door to a much better, more soul-aligned opportunity a few months later? How many times has a path that seemed wrong taught us the most important lessons we needed to learn? When we release our grip on the final outcome, an immense space of peace opens up. We stop fighting against what is in the name of what should be, and we start to find the wisdom and opportunity in the present moment, exactly as it presents itself. This surrender is the ultimate freedom. It is the conscious refusal to fire the second, third, and fourth arrows at ourselves. It is learning to tend to the wound of the first arrow with gentleness, allowing it to heal, transforming it into a mark of resilience, not a source of chronic pain. In this spirit of community and sharing, I would like to invite you to do something a little different. Here in the comments, instead of just an opinion, how about leaving a request, a wish, an intention, a silent prayer that you carry in your heart? It could be for yourself, for someone you love, or for the world. By doing this, we are not just interacting with a video, we are weaving a web of positive energy, where each intention is a light that adds to the others, creating a space of mutual support and hope. And while you are here, if you feel that this space brings you peace and resonance, consider joining our community. Subscribing to the channel isn't an obligation or about numbers, but a gesture. It's like finding a garden and deciding to return often, both to help care for it and to be nourished by it. As we learn not to fire the second arrow and to surrender our attachments, we discover that this surrender is not an act of passivity, but a form of conscious participation in life. And the virtue that gives body to this participation, that nourishes and sustains it, is patience. In our modern society, which glorifies speed and instant gratification, patience is often misunderstood as a weakness or a waste of time. We associate it with inactive waiting in a line or in traffic, but in the perennial wisdom of Buddhism, patience is an active force, an expression of deep trust and inner stability. It is the stillness at the center of the hurricane, the clarity that allows us to act with precision and wisdom, rather than reacting with panic and impulsivity. Patience is not the absence of action. It is the fine-tuning to the right timing of action. It is knowing when to push the boat into the river and when to simply let the current do its work. It is the courage to remain present and attentive while the seeds we have planted germinate under the earth, invisible to our eyes, but alive and active in their own sacred rhythm. To understand the active nature of patience, we can contemplate the image of a master potter at their wheel. The potter sits with a formless lump of clay. They cannot force the clay to become a vessel. If they apply too much pressure or do it too quickly, the entire structure collapses. If the wheel spins at a speed that is not ideal, the form falls apart. The master potter has developed, through years of practice, a deep sensitivity, a communion with the material. They feel the moisture of the clay, its elasticity, its limits. Their hands do not dominate the clay, they dance with it. They guide, invite, and suggest a form, but they are always listening to the clay's response. This process is a meditation in motion, a living lesson in patience. They are completely engaged, focused, and present, yet at the same time, they are in a state of profound allowance, permitting the form to emerge in its own time. We, in our own lives, are both the potter and the clay. We want to shape ourselves, transform ourselves, heal our wounds, and reach our potential. Impatience is the attempt to force this transformation, to spin the wheel too fast. It leads us to frustration, exhaustion, and the feeling that we are broken or inadequate. Patience, on the other hand, is the act of treating ourselves with the same skill and compassion as the master potter. It is recognizing that healing has its own timeline, that growth is an organic, not a mechanical process, and that every stage of our journey, even the most formless ones, are essential parts of the work of art we are becoming. Cultivating this patience transforms us from the inside out. Impatience is a state of inner war. It is our mind fighting against the reality of the present moment. It generates a cascade of stress hormones, tenses our body, and clouds our judgment. When we are impatient, we cannot see the solutions that might be right in front of us because we are obsessed with how things should be. Patience is the peace treaty. It is the act of taking a deep breath in the midst of chaos and asking, I am here. What does this moment require of me now? This simple question changes everything. It pulls us out of the hypothetical future and anchors us in the power of the present. By practicing patience with the small things, a slow internet connection, a friend who is late, a task that takes longer than expected, we train our minds. Each of these small annoyances becomes an opportunity, a training ground for our patience muscle. Over time, this capacity strengthens and becomes our default state, allowing us to face life's great challenges, a prolonged illness, a career crisis, grief, with a stability and grace that would have previously seemed impossible. We discover a sanctuary of calm within us that cannot be shaken by external storms. Patience teaches us that peace is not the absence of problems, but the ability to deal with them without losing our center. It is the serene confidence that, just as winter always gives way to spring, the difficult phases of life will also pass, bringing with them valuable lessons and renewed strength, if we only know how to wait with an open heart. Patience, as we have seen, teaches us to inhabit time in a new way, to make peace with the waiting, and as we cultivate this inner stillness, we open the door to the most sacred and powerful space that exists, the present moment. To live in the now is perhaps the simplest and at the same time, the most challenging teaching of all. Our mind is a tireless traveler. In the blink of an eye, it transports us to the mists of the past, ruminating on regrets or warming itself in the nostalgia of memories long gone. In the next instant, it leaps into the future, weaving webs of anxiety about what might happen or losing itself in fantasies of an ideal tomorrow. Meanwhile, life, the only real life we have, quietly pulses in the only place it can be found, here and now. The practice of mindfulness, or sati, is the gentle training to become the master of this traveling mind. It's not about chaining it down or fighting against its impulses, but rather, with infinite kindness, inviting it to come back home, to the body, to the breath, to this very instant. And the golden key that opens the door to this home, revealing all its hidden treasures, is gratitude. Gratitude is not just a positive emotion or a list of good things we mechanically recite. Gratitude is a mode of perception. It is the lens through which life gains color, depth, and meaning. It is the true alchemy of the mind, capable of transforming the lead of routine into the gold of living presence. Think of the journey of a treasure hunter. He holds an ancient map that promises a chest full of gold in a distant land. Obsessed with the final prize, he crosses breathtaking landscapes without truly seeing them. He meets fascinating people without truly listening to them. He develops strength and resilience without acknowledging his own transformation. His focus is entirely on the destination. After a long and arduous journey, he finally arrives at the spot marked on the map and finds the chest. But upon opening it, he discovers it is empty. In his initial despair, he sits down and for the first time truly looks around. He sees the most spectacular sunset he has ever witnessed. He remembers the kind smile of an old woman who offered him water along the way. He feels the strength in his own muscles, forged by the mountains he climbed. And then he understands. The treasure was never in the chest. The treasure was the journey. For many of us, life is this treasure hunt. We are always searching for the next chest, the promotion, the perfect relationship, the dream house, the peaceful retirement. And in doing so, we forget to live the only thing we have, the path. Gratitude is the moment we stop looking at the map and realize we are already standing on the treasure. It is the act of appreciating the feeling of air filling your lungs, the miracle of a functioning body, the taste of a simple cup of tea. When we practice gratitude, we are no longer waiting for happiness to arrive in the future. We are discovering it in the richness of the present. This practice radically transforms our experience. The external world doesn't change, but our perception of it is revolutionized. A rainy day is no longer a bad day, but an invitation to be cozy, to read, to listen to the sound of rain on the window pane. A simple meal, when savored with gratitude, becomes a feast for the senses. An everyday conversation, when experienced with presence, can reveal deep connections. This is the alchemy. Happiness ceases to be an event and becomes a state of being, cultivated moment by moment through conscious appreciation. And this practice can go even deeper, extending not only to our joys, but also to our challenges. This may seem counterintuitive. How can one be grateful for pain or difficulty? This is not about a masochistic contentment with suffering. It is about being grateful for the lesson the challenge contains. Being grateful for the strength a sickness revealed in you. Being grateful for the resilience a loss forced you to develop. Being grateful for the compassion that your own pain awakened for others. To look back at the most difficult times in your life and recognize that they were often the great masters that sculpted who you are today is a profound and healing form of gratitude. It allows us to integrate our shadows and understand that nothing on our journey is in vain. Every piece, light or dark, belongs in the mosaic of our existence. Gratitude, therefore, anchors us in the now and reconciles us with our past, creating a foundation of peace upon which we can build our future. As we ground ourselves in the power of gratitude and the refuge of the now, we arrive at the final understanding, the law of cause and effect, or karma. This principle is not a system of divine punishment, but a natural law as elegant as gravity. Every thought, word, and action we emit is like a stone cast into a serene lake, whose ripples inevitably return to us. This grants us immense dignity and power, as it shows us that we are the sculptors of our own reality. The seeds of patience, compassion, and detachment that we plant today will surely become the flowers and fruits of our tomorrow. And here, all the threads of our journey weave together into the tapestry of deep acceptance. To accept is not to passively resign, but to embrace reality with wisdom. It is accepting the impermanence of all things, welcoming the fruits of our past actions without resistance, and, at the same time, embracing our power to plant new and better seeds in the fertile soil of the now. It is the peace that arises when we stop fighting the river of life and finally learn to flow with its dance, trusting that every movement, every cycle has its purpose and its beauty. It is the freedom of simply being. We have reached the end of this reflection, but not the end of the path, for the inner journey lasts a lifetime. If these words have served as a lantern on your way, I warmly invite you to join our Sangha, our virtual community. Subscribing is like saying, yes, I want to continue this walk. It is an invitation for us to continue exploring these paths of peace together, supporting one another with each new step. May your journey be serene and full of discovery.